into the Warchant.com report. I'm Jeff Cameron alongside Corey Clark, new of Warchant.com. Welcome aboard, good sir. Obviously, Corey comes over from the Tallahassee Democrat, and if you're in this area, you've heard all of the hoopla. There's been advertising on the great 97.9 ESPN radio. Thanks to this man, the founder and administrator of Warchant.com, Gene Williams. Great to be with all of you. Happy holidays. It's been a while since we talked. A lot has happened in that time. Of course, Florida State getting set to take on Southern Miss in Shreveport. 1:30 ESPN, your details for the game, of course, and we look forward to that matchup. Kind of a strange game with all of the transitional period that we're in, and we'll start with that. Willie Taggart's first 2 weeks on the job. I'll start with you, Gene. What stood out so far, Willie Taggart's initial impression on you through 2 weeks?
Well, in a word, energy. I mean, it's incredible what this guy brings to the table in terms of the energy. I don't think I've seen a guy do so much in 2 weeks on the recruiting trail as he's done. I think he's probably set a record in miles. You just see him all over the country every single day, working all night, crazy hours. Just before that first visit weekend, he had 12 guys on campus, and 5 of them weren't even on FSU's board a week ago. So he's not only getting the recruits that decommitted and the ones that were soft and getting them back in the fold, it's all new guys starting to come in. And by the time most people watch this, the early signing period would have already happened. So he had little time to work with, and he's already off to a great start there. And I'd say, not a surprise. We haven't even been out at a practice yet, but I've heard it's a completely different vibe at practice. There's music blaring in the IPF. Guys are loose, having a good time, joking around. Obviously wasn't like that with Jimbo very much. So I think that's two of the biggest things that has so far have jumped out at me.
Yeah, and he's been given a really tough task. He's trying to put together a staff while also trying to salvage something of this recruiting class with an early signing period. Speaking of that, Corey, let's look at what Coach Taggart's done. He's brought in Dante Pimpleton. He's brought in another coach, and Coach Lockett. These are guys that you kind of figured would come over, I think, initially. They've been with Willie Taggart. Is it surprising the lack of other assistant hires up to this point to you?
I mean, a little bit, but I think it's not a big worry, because I think at this juncture, especially now, hiring Jim Leavitt this weekend, if it had been a Jim Leavitt per se, that's not going to do much for this early signing period anyway. I mean, that's two days before the signing period. I think what he has now is another 2 or 3 weeks where he has a chance to really go and find. And I think the biggest position by far is defensive coordinator. I think everybody would agree with that. Go and get the best defensive coordinator available. Now, you're not going to be able to pay $1.7 million. That's absurd that Oregon did that. But you can go get a guy for $800,000-$900,000, chump change, $800,000-$900,000 a year, maybe $1 million, and you can get one of the best coaches in the country. He has Florida State. He has that cachet, and I also think two of the last 3 defensive coordinators of Florida State are now head coaches in the SEC. So when you have that kind of cachet and what that can do, he's going to be able to pick from almost every school in the country. This is an important hire, and now that he didn't get one maybe a week after he was announced as the head coach, don't rush it and make a really good hire, because we've seen what happens when you make a bad hire at that position. Yeah,
obviously you could argue that certainly this whole set of scenarios that have played out stems from Jimbo's hiring, unfortunately, of a defense coordinator that didn't work out. And there are many other factors included in that. So this is an important time for Willie Taggart. There's a lot on his plate over the next few months as he prepares to be the head coach in his first season at Florida State. The most important decision, Corey just alluded to the fact that they got to get a defensive coordinator in here, got to make the right hire there. Would you echo that sentiment and say that's the biggest thing that's on his plate right now?
Yeah, great minds, Corey, because that's what I had number 1 on my list, defensive coordinator. And a couple reasons why. Obviously, he's an offensive guy. He's going to take care of the offense. I think unlike Jimbo, he's going to micromanage a lot less. He's going to pass that over to somebody, let them run the defense. So if you get somebody who's competent, who knows what they're doing, and he doesn't have to do it, that's a lot off of his plate. And I think right now, anytime you're on a job for the first time, he's had all this stuff going on, there's a learning curve involved. He's going to have a lot to deal with over the next several months. So anything he can do to take stuff off of his plate is important. So I think a defensive coordinator where he can pass things over. I think people don't talk about it, but director of operations who can take care of all these little things. And I don't think he's going to be like Jimbo where he has to micromanage every little aspect of the team. So if he gets some good guys in those roles, it makes that transition a lot smoother, lets him do what he does best. That's get out, recruit, go out and get this team. This is going to be an important spring to get this team to make the transition to his system on both sides of the ball. So I think it's really important to hire the right people.
Corey, what's the most difficult task for Coach Taggart in his first season, his first year on the job at Florida State?
I mean, I think just this is going to sound like he's coming into a program that's used to losing, and he's not. Obviously, Jimbo did a good job here, but to change the culture a little bit, to get these kids to buy in, because that's always the first step. You've got to get the kids that are here to believe in your vision. The kids that are already here I'm talking about, they didn't sign with you. You might have even recruited many of them at South Florida, and they chose Florida State. Now, they chose Florida State more than they, maybe chose Jimbo Fisher over Willie Taggart, but still, they're not the kids you brought in. They're not the kids you recruited. They're not the kids that believed in your vision like they believed in Jimbo's vision. So I think that's the biggest thing, is getting those kids on board. But from what we've seen from Willie Taggart, there certainly doesn't seem to be any reason to think that they won't buy in. I mean, he's a guy that's magnetic. He's personable. He's, energetic. I don't know how they wouldn't buy in, but still, that's the number one goal to me, is to get the kids, the 50 or 60 that are still here from Jimbo's tenure, and get them to buy into your system and believe that you're going to lead them back to the playoffs.
In many ways, while that's the most important aspect of what he has to do, some would say, it's also one that I think he's built for. I mean, the authenticity we saw at the press conference, and he's an affable guy, as you just alluded to, Corey. People like to be around him. We haven't had an opportunity covering this team to be around Willie Taggart much. He hasn't been here very long, but I know you are friends with a lot of people. We all are in the industry, people who've been around Willie Taggart's programs, people who covered him at USF or perhaps covered him at Oregon or before that all the way back at Western Kentucky. And they say that's the easy part for Willie, because it just emanates from him. Right. Just a guy that you want to be around. There's that quiet leadership. There's that strength involved there. I think that's an aspect of the job that he will hit a home run in right away. But you do have to win games. And none of us will know about that aspect of it until we get to see this offense get cranked up in the spring and then later on in the season. Let's take a look at Florida State's opponent. We'll do that next as they get set to take on Southern Miss in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Florida State, Southern Miss, and the Independence Bowl. You know, the bowl game in and of itself, Southern Miss comes in with an 8-4 record. This is a team that, amongst Power 5 teams that they faced, they lost to Kentucky, they lost to Tennessee. So if you're trying to size them up, 117th in strength of schedule, this is a game Florida State should win. But so often, the bowl game itself is less about maybe the matchup, more about who wants to be there, who cares to give the requisite energy required to win a football game. And then also, in this case, for FSU, they're going to set a new record with 36 straight bowl appearances now, something I know all of us Noles are proud of, but the streak of 40 consecutive winning seasons is on the line. So, Corey, I'll ask you, how important is winning the bowl game to the program to still have that winning streak intact, or is it?
I mean, sort of. I think it's more important to get the revenge for the Brett Favre game from 1989. I think that's what people are really after, because that essentially cost Florida State a national championship, that game. No, I think winning seasons are important. To have, what's it been, since 77? This will be 41 in a row? That's nuts. Then that's a really cool streak to have. I think the bowl streak, because it's an NCAA record now, is probably a little bit bigger deal, and they did extend that. But yeah, I think that's something to hold on to. I mean, that's something that Florida, we talked about it before, not on the Warchant Report, obviously, just when I call you at night.
Right.
We've talked about the fact that
3 times a week.
Yeah, it's neat for Florida State fans, even in down years, to still have those winning records. And so I think that's something that they take pride in. I think Florida State fans should take pride in that. I don't know that it portends to anything for next year. In fact, it doesn't. It's going to be a whole new coaching staff. There's only 5 coaches on the staff right now anyway. Some of these players aren't playing. So it doesn't portend anything for next year at all. But it would be a nice feather in the cap of this team that didn't have many feathers in their cap to actually have a winning record and keep that streak alive.
A cap saw a dearth of feathers. It was very difficult to find them. Relevance of this game, aside from the winning streak, is there one?
I was thinking about this. This might be, since I've been at Florida State as a student in the mid-'80s, this might be the most irrelevant bowl game in terms of the importance outside of the winning streak. Obviously, that is something to hold your hat on, like you say, tip your cap, whatever, too. But, I mean, it feels a little bit like that, what was that, Music City Bowl they had way back when?
Yeah,
just a bunch of guys.
Against Kentucky?
I mean, you went in that, there was all the suspensions from the academic thing. You kind of have a feeling of some guys are going to obviously be sitting out this game. There's maybe a few guys with academic issues will be out of this game as well. As Corey alluded to, all the people coaching now will probably not, outside of maybe Odell, won't be coaching again next year. I don't really see what this matters. And you know, one of the sets, I think Ira threw it out during headlines, or one of your shows recently, or on your interview, Jeff, is teams winning bowls don't translate really over to the next season at all. In the last 2 worst seasons Florida State had this year, you had the Orange Bowl, great bowl win, right? Meant nothing. The last time they won the Champs Sports Bowl was the next season was 2009, that 7-6 season. So the last 2 worst seasons, they won their bowl game the year before. So I really don't think it means a whole lot. You want to win for the streak, but other than that,
Glorified exhibition games. If you're not in the playoff, that's all they are. They don't do anything for you the next year unless you have a really, really young team and you're gaining those extra practices and experience that leading up to that bowl game benefit you more than the actual bowl game. They're not. No. In this case, no. I'm saying with you. I'm just saying in general, bowl games don't mean much. I mean, fans take great pride in winning them, but frankly, even that Orange Bowl, and there is prestige next to the name, the Orange Bowl, obviously, and you beat a name program in Michigan, so it felt good. But even that situation really is nothing more than an exhibition game these days. Basically, if you're not in the playoff, and back in the before that, if you weren't in a BCS bowl, it really just didn't mean an awful lot. So I like winning, surely more than losing, and having a winning record means a lot to Florida State fans everywhere. So that would be nice, because that is something to throw in the face of Florida fans and others. If you look at all the great programs, whether it's Oklahoma or whether it's Notre Dame, whether it's Nebraska or all these other programs that have had losing seasons, Florida State was able to say during this stretch that even when we were at our worst, never had a losing season in that stretch. So I think people like to be able to throw that around. And, frankly, we look at Southern Miss. We could talk about their offense. We could talk about what they are and players to watch for. I think there's a greater challenge here. What's the challenge for this defense that doesn't involve the statistics of Southern Miss and more about maybe a lot of guys playing that haven't played much?
Well, that's it. I mean, who's going to be in the defensive backfield? There's going to be guys, and Josh Sweat and Derwin James for sure aren't playing. There's going to be a lot of inexperience on the defensive side of the ball. And when you lose a Josh Sweat and a Derwin James, that's a challenge to replace those guys, even though you have quality backups. So I think that's the challenge. I also think it might be a good thing in the sense that you're actually going to have guys out there in this game that doesn't mean anything, like we just kind of talked about, that will actually be trying to prove themselves, that will be playing hard, that will be trying to make plays because maybe they haven't gotten a chance to make plays over the years, and impress the new coaching staff. I mean, I think that's a big deal. So in that regard, there is a benefit. There is a silver lining to your All-American safety deciding not to play in the bowl game and your junior defensive end not playing in the bowl game. Other guys get a chance to step up, and they do have talent. It's young talent, and this is game experience, which you can't replicate in practice. That's a big deal, I think.
I think statistically, by the way, when we look at the other side of the ball, Gene, Southern Miss is pretty talented. They have a defensive coordinator that a lot of people have looked at as an outside fringe candidate for Florida State even. Their numbers have been impressive, but the strength of schedule isn't there, so it's hard to know.
Yeah, it's a thing. You look, this is where statistics, you kind of go, I don't really know. They're number 17 in total defense, top 30 in both run defense and pass defense. Then you start looking at that schedule and you go, ooh, they played 2 Power 5 teams and 2, I hate to put power next to Kentucky and Tennessee, but those are the 2 Power 5 teams they played, and they both lost to them, and those are really lower echelon Power 5 teams. They run a 3-4, they do blitz a lot. So, I mean, from that perspective, I think the one thing from FSU you worry a little bit about is that freshman quarterback. You've had issues blocking. Could they get some free shots at Blackman and maybe create some turnovers? And if they create turnovers, suddenly you're a heavy favorite. Maybe suddenly it gives them enough impetus to pull off the upset. So that's the one thing I look at maybe concerns you a little bit, is just blocking those blitzes.
When we come back, there's a new rule in place that involves an early signing period. In fact, at the time you're looking at this, they'll be in the middle of it. And so how that impacts Florida State, Willie Taggart, and college football in general, we'll take a look into that next on the Warchant.com report. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Of course, there is a new rule in place from 12/20 through 12/22. It's known as the early signing period. And at the time that you're watching this, of course, we're in the middle of it. And I guess I'll start. Gene, really, I'm going to defer to you here. I mean, first of all, Corey and I haven't covered recruiting as in-depthly as you have almost the entirety of your time here at Warchant as owner. You've seen the good and the bad with recruiting and the times that kids can sign and what the coaches have argued over the years. Do you agree with an early signing period? Do you like it?
I agree with an early signing period. You have it in basketball. I think it's good to take stuff off of kids' plates. The random date they've picked in late December is ridiculous. I mean, you're better off not having it. I mean, look at that this year. Teams are in the middle of bowl prep. You've still got coaching changes going all over. You're going to have more coaching changes after the bowl game. So really, what's the point? I mean, if the point is, well, let's give the kids and let's see what's going to happen with these schools, well, that doesn't really help because there's still flux at every school. It doesn't help the teams. Most of them are bowl prep. And so this is in the middle of it. I mean, you're putting more strain on the coaches, everybody involved. I absolutely hate this time. You're going to do it in August. And I guess some of the criticism of doing it in August is say, look, there could be changes. Your coaches could change. They could get NCAA trouble, something else. Well, put some exemptions in there. If there's a coaching change, if there's NC violations, their kid can get out of it. And so what, it punishes the school, that's fine. Don't commit violations. You lose your coaching staff. Hey, we're talking about 18-year-old kids or even younger in some instances. Give them a break on that. So I like the idea. in general, I hate the December date. It's horrible for everybody involved.
Why did they decide on December? How did that come about?
Cut the baby. It sounded like they were trying to push for August. There were people against that. There were people against the just keeping it at 1. So they said, well, let's just do this. We'll do this here. And I honestly think they'll do this for a year or two, and they'll wise up and they'll either eliminate it altogether or they'll move it back to the summer.
When you've talked to coaches, I know you've talked to Jimbo about this, but you've had a chance to talk to other coaches. What do they say about this?
They hate it too. Jimbo came up for it. Jimbo was for an early signing period, but when he first did it, I think the conception was it was going to be in the summer, which, think about this, it takes it off the kids' plate. They have their whole summer to work on school, academics. People aren't blowing up their phones, social media, asking, where are you going to school, this. So if the design is to help the kids, then it doesn't do any good to do it in December. They just finished finals up. Whether they sign February 1st or now, it makes no difference to them. So again, I like the concept. Doing it December 20th to the 22nd makes no sense.
So you're just voting for a common sense approach.
Well,
to imagine that, right? Okay, well, listen, how far behind the 8 ball is Taggart in trying to salvage this 2018 class? What will they do? It is different for Florida State. I'll stick with Eugene here because this is a situation that's almost untenable. He can do some things, but this is not going to be, I think, the class that we're accustomed to seeing.
It's absolutely crazy. Now, I know by the time people are seeing this, the ranking will change, but we tape this, Jeff. FSU's rank right now is number 58 in recruiting. And I have never in my life seen this late of a stage FSU anywhere close. I think they're behind Duke and Western Kentucky right now, right in front of them. So they're battling out with those two teams in the rankings. So I don't think if Jimbo, I'm not saying he tried to sabotage the class. I don't think he did, but if he did, it probably couldn't have been any worse. So he put Taggart in a horrible position 2 weeks before this early signing period to try to salvage. I think what he's done so far, the proof will be in the pudding to see who actually signs during this early signing period, then obviously the late one. But, I mean, I think he's done a tremendous job, but I think people need to temper their enthusiasm. He ends up with the number 16, 17 class, whatever it's going to be. Don't be upset. That's still a great job on his part.
I was going to say that would be amazing if you finished top 20. Do you think it's really important for Willie Taggart to make a splash in this early signing period with this first class to kind of prove to people that he is, as he's been described, a recruiting genius?
No, not really, because we know he's a good recruiter,
right.
And that will be proven out over time. And it'll be proven out, I think, in February. Like we said, they're going to probably. I mean, I think they'll probably climb 40 spots. Yeah. He's going to get guys when he has 6 weeks. I mean, he's been here for 2 weeks, and to convince kids that
come on, Willie, let's go.
By all accounts,
he brought in 3 5-stars last week, and none of those guys were even on FSU's board a week ago. That's nuts.
And by all accounts, what he was left with, it was really bare. So for him to be able to put together a class that finishes top 20 in 5 or 6 weeks. That really portends well. That's my favorite word today, portends, for how he's going to recruit here. Because now, think about the class of 19 when he's got a whole year to develop relationships with these kids. I think the most important splash Taggart made was his opening press conference. That won over the fan base. That's what he needed to do. I think the kids are going to come because again, we all know he's a magnetic guy. They're going to come. He's going to show that he can recruit. Heck, you had Oregon number 5 in the country in recruiting rankings. Oregon's never, ever anywhere close to the top 5. Right. Before he left, he had them number 5. The guy can recruit no matter what happens this week. We know he can recruit. He'll salvage the class in February, and then the 2019 class, you have to imagine, will be a monster.
On to the picks. Corey's first time being involved in this. We'll have to take advantage of him. Yes. Gene, let's make this happen. Here we go. First up, Texas A&M. Good spot to start. Versus Wake Forest. Interesting that Wake Forest is favored over Texas A&M by a full 3 points. Give me the Demon Deacons giving 3 to Texas A&M.
Well, let's see. The Deacons will obviously have the advantage in coaching.
That's correct.
So we'll go with the Deacons. I like that, Jeff. I'll do that pick.
Man, imagine going to a school that's an underdog to Wake Forest in a bowl game.
Yeah, it's a tough decision.
Who would do that? Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I'll still take Texas A&M. I can't trust Wake Forest.
Well, just remember, Jimbo went to war against Wake Forest earlier this year here at Florida State.
He knows how to
quite the match. A really difficult game for Florida State.
But they won. They won going away. They won by like 8 points in that one.
Big win there. That's
the biggest win of the year.
Virginia Tech versus Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's given 4.5. Of course, that entire staff came back. That's the good news for Oklahoma State. They score a lot. I like their quarterback. I'm going to take Okie State and give the 4.5 to Va Tech.
I'm with you. I think that Tech struggled a little down the stretch there. And Oklahoma State, you're right. The coaching step back. They're playing pretty well. I like them in this.
And also trust the better offenses in bowl games. So I go Oklahoma State, too.
Good call. LSU's giving 3 to Notre Dame. Tough game. These two teams didn't play well down the stretch, but I will take LSU and give the 3 points to Notre Dame.
Great minds again, Jeff. Just Notre Dame down the stretch kind of wanes, so I'll go with the Tigers.
Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame in this
up.
one.
All right.
I like Notre Dame. I don't trust Coach O.
No,
to get them done. Yeah, with a month off.
You don't think so?
I don't trust him.
All right.
That's a disadvantage. But more teams an advantage. Disadvantage when they have time to
he's
prepare.
got too much time.
Let me ask you, this struck me as incredibly odd, and Vegas can take advantage of the public here, but I find it really odd that Wisconsin's a 6.5-point favorite over Miami.
Got to be more, right?
No, I thought Miami.
Really?
Wisconsin played nobody all year long. When they finally did, they weren't very good. I think Miami is not great. I hate Rozier at quarterback, but Wisconsin given 6.5. They're both frauds. Give me Miami getting 6.5.
Here's what I don't know. I haven't looked at Miami enough. I know by the end of the year, almost their entire team was out. They had injuries all over the place. I don't know how many of those guys are coming back. But they just were really, at the end of the year, they were a shell. They were a little overrated to go out.
Well, they
won a bunch of fluke games they had no business winning. But at the end, they were just a very average team by the end of the year. I still like Wisconsin in this. I like the little reverse hook on there. So go ahead and give me the Badgers.
Yeah, I'm just doing it because of the points. I think they're both fraudulent. I think it's an ugly game.
I really don't trust Wisconsin ever in any game.
No,
it's hard to
sleep under the tip of suspicion.
And I do think Miami will have a little more to play for. Finish with 11 wins will be a nice, because they finished so poorly, to win that last game and to cap off what they thought was a magical season with a big win. I just think they'll have more to play for, and I think they'll win that game. I think they'll win the game outright.
So you and I got Miami. Gene's going with Wisconsin. All right, Oklahoma and Georgia. Here we go, buddy. Georgia is favored in this game, giving a 1.5. I'll start with you. You're going to go with your alma mater, or are you going to concede that Oklahoma's just a better school?
I'm definitely not going to concede that at all. As growing up, being a Georgia fan since I graduated 20 years ago, they never win big games, or it seems like they don't. They got here, so they had to win a few of them.
Yeah.
But I want them to win. I'm hoping they win, so that means they won't win. So I'll take Baker Mayfield with 1.5 points. But we're rooting for Georgia. And Georgia's defense should be a problem. Should be an issue for Oklahoma.
Georgia's defense is a problem. I think it's a great game. I love the matchup. I'm taking Oklahoma, but I think it's an evenly matched game.
Yeah, I'm with you. Make it 3 in a row. Baker Mayfield's the difference. I just think, again, better offenses are going to win. I think you got a freshman quarterback versus the best quarterback in college football. I got to go with the best quarterback.
Hard to bet against Baker. He may not be the most eminently likable fellow, but he can play. Clemson in Alabama, great matchup. Ooh. I will say this: if this game had played immediately following the ACC championship, I think Clemson wins big. If it had played the week after, I think Clemson wins big. But a month off does give me pause to think that this is going to be a great football game. I'll take Clemson getting 2.5, but I understand why Vegas did what they did. Gene, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't like this one because I hate going against Saban ever, especially when he has time to prepare. But I think Clemson was playing better down the stretch than Alabama was, so we've got these two things going either way. You know what? I'm just going to go the standard. I don't want to bet against Saban. Just give me Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take Alabama too. I don't trust Clemson's quarterback. I don't think he's all that great.
You trust Jalen Hurts at Alabama?
Yeah. More than Brian.
That's something. I think
more than Brian.
Well, one has a little more experience.
Yep.
Okay. Florida State is giving a whopping 15.5 to Southern Miss. Again, this is an awful lot about the young kids, whether or not they want to be there. Who cares more about the game? 15.5 is too rich for my blood. Give me Southern Miss getting 15.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's more than 2 touchdowns, so I like that fact of it. I think that these non-Power 5 teams usually rise up against the big-name opponents in bowl games. You don't know how much FSU is going to really care in this game. The coaching staff shuffles, all the uncertainty that's been going on with this team. It's just I think FSU will win the game. That's just way too many points.
It seems it's a crazy number. To me, it's a crazy number.
Yeah.
Almost like I can't believe this is the number. I'm going to bet a paycheck on it.
Don't do that.
I will not do that.
But Vegas may know something.
Yeah, they might. But I would take Southern Miss. When does Florida State ever beat teams by 2 touchdowns?
It's a new era.
Well, not really.
It's kind of a new era. There's the weight lifted.
That's not in this.
They're playing footloose and fancy free.
Sure, but that's
allowing
not
athletes to be athletes in space.
Well, what if they do go out and win by 4 touchdowns? What does that tell you if they win by 4 touchdowns?
Well,
they just go out and they blow them out.
I think there's a distinct possibility. I'm not willing to bet on it. I took the 15.5. But I think what Vegas is telling you is that athlete for athlete, this is a complete mismatch.
They did lose to Tennessee, so they're probably going, wait a minute.
They're basically saying, look, if Florida State just lines up and plays hard, athletically speaking, Southern Miss is going to get overwhelmed.
Right.
That's what they're betting on in this game. Now, if Florida State plays hard is the question, and that I can't answer, but I'm going to take Southern Miss for this. I'm not doing this in my real life. Leave that game alone, kids. Just leave it alone.
I don't know. It's a big number, folks. It's a big number. remember. It's only a gambling problem if you lose.
Good job, Ryan. Appreciate it as always. For Corey Clark, welcome aboard officially, buddy.
Welcome.
And Gene Williams, I'm Jeff Cameron. Happy holidays, everybody. Be well, be safe, enjoy your holidays, and we'll talk to you again down the line. Take care.